First, I want you to go to page 145 of your journal and copy down the definition for domain. We're going to skip the definition for scientific notation, so you don't need to worry about that. When you're done getting the definition, take a look at the core concepts on operations of functions. You can see we have addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division of functions, and the definition is next with an example of each. Then I want you to go to page 12 of your notes packet where we start 5.5, and we're going to do example 1. We want to find f plus g of x, so we just do f of x plus g of x, and that's going to equal 3 square roots of x plus negative 10, so it's really just minus 10 square root of x. When we combine like terms here, we get negative 7 square root x, and it says to state the domain. We need to state the domain here. We have square root, so we talked about this last week in class. If we have the square root, x has to be greater than or equal to 0. So there's our answer, and there's our domain. Then we want to evaluate when x is 4. So over here, if we do f plus g when x is 4, you can write it like this, and that's just going to equal negative 7 times the square root of 4, which would be negative 7 times 2, so our answer is negative 14. If we want to subtract functions, so we want to take f of x and subtract it from g of x, we would take 3x to the third minus 2x squared plus 5, and then subtract x to the third minus 3x squared plus 4x minus 2. I put this in parentheses because I have to distribute this negative to each term and subtract. So 3x to the third minus x to the third gives me 2x to the third. Negative 2x squared minus a negative 3x squared gives me just x squared. And then I have negative 4x. It doesn't combine with any like terms on the left. And I have 5 minus 2, minus a negative 2, which becomes plus 7. This is my f minus g of x, and my domain is just all real numbers. So from negative infinity to infinity. Because we can plug any number in for x here, and it's going to work. So it says find the difference when x is negative 2. So we have, x, this should be minus f minus g for negative 2. And that's going to equal, plug in negative 2 to our answer. So 2 times negative 2 to the third plus negative 2 squared minus 4 times negative 2 plus 7. When you calculate that, you should get negative 16 plus 4 plus 8 plus 7. So then you'll get, is that 12, 19? You should get 3 for your final answer. And now we're going to move on to example 3, multiplying two functions. So we want to have f times g of x and that's going to equal x squared times the square root of x, which is the same thing as x squared times x to the 1/2. And we can add exponents here. So we want to add 2 plus 1/2. So we know that's 2.5, but we want to make a common denominator here, and we want to make it an improper fraction. So when we do that, we're going to get x, let's see, we'll make this 4 over 2 plus 1 over 2. So what's that going to be? 4 over 2 plus 1 over 2. Yeah, it's going to be 5 over 2. So x to the 5/2, that's the same thing as saying the square root of x to the 5th power. So you could write this in a few different ways. And it says to state the domain, we see square root of x. So the domain is x has to be greater than or equal to 0 again. And then evaluate the product when it's 9. So f times g of 9 is going to equal the square root of 9 to the 5th power. And that would be 3 to the 5th power, which would be 243. And that's our final answer. So now let's go down to dividing functions. And we have f of x over g of x. For this problem, we're just going to put f of x in the top and g of x in the bottom. And we can simplify this by making this exponent a 1 and subtracting the 1 minus 3/4. So if we do 6x to the 1 minus 3/4, 1 minus 3/4 is just 1/4. So we get 6x to the 1/4 power. And the only thing that we have here is that x cannot, it cannot be negative because we have the 4th root, but it's in the denominator, so it also cannot equal 0. So we're going to say for our domain that x must be greater than 0. And then we have to evaluate f over g of x when x is 16. So we have to evaluate this, and we would say 6 times 16 to the 1/4 power, which is the same thing as 6 times the 4th root of 16. So that's just 6 times 2. And what's that? Good, my answer is 12. We'll work on the monitoring progress problems tomorrow.